free speech is one of the most important bedrocks of our society.
The battle of free speech is the battle of the century.
Violence. We keep nibbling away at free speech.
In a world where voices are suppressed and dissent is met with censorship, the fight for free speech has become a rallying cry for many. Recent developments like Scotland's controversial hate crime laws have ignited fierce debate. Famed author JK Rowling has emerged as a prominent voice in the fight against these encroachments on freedom. From the streets to the halls of power, the battle for free speech continues, reminding us all that the right to speak our minds is worth fighting for. Sky News Digital Originals presents The Fight for Free Speech. Scotland's new hate crime laws have ignited a fierce debate about the battle of free speech. So what exactly are these new laws? The Act seeks to fortify protections against hate crimes by expanding recognised offences and adjusting definitions to reflect evolving societal norms. The Act also introduces new offences aimed at preventing the incitement of hatred based on disability, religion, sexual orientation, transgender identity and age. The Act abolishes the offence of blasphemy. While not presently covered, there is growing expectation for separate legislation to address misogyny and associated hate crimes.
This is what blows my mind. So I can say whatever I want, so long as I say, "Oh, I'm just kidding," by the way, at the end of it. So if someone is offended, they can just say, "Oh, I didn't find Esther's joke very funny." I mean, it's completely ridiculous. And unfortunately, they're going to end up arresting, most likely, people of minority backgrounds who don't come from a culture where they censor themselves. I mean, if I really wanted to get nasty with this, I could just say, "Look, I'm Ghanaian, I'm from West Africa, I'm not used to holding my tongue. This is what I really believe. And if you arrest me, it's racial and ethnic discrimination." And then what are they going to do? Their heads are going to explode because they don't know who to discriminate against more. So it's completely impractical.
Week, it seems that the battle of free speech is the battle of the century, and once in a while that battlefield gives us a wink and a laugh, and I think that happened here with this. It's really funny, I think, the rate of complaints that they received. On a serious note, though, again, how much of it is going to lead to a change in policy remains to be seen, because the bill got passed. Is he really going to suffer any consequences from these complaints electorally? Unlikely. Will the bill change? Unlikely. Often these bills, I'm not sure about the one in Scotland, but often they have parliamentary exemptions. So it's rules for thee and not for me. So, who knows how much actually will change, but in this moment, it is funny because you probably didn't see that coming.
This is Scotland right now, but you'd have to be a dill to think this is not going to come to the rest of the world. If it is a hate crime to make a comment like that or to supposedly incite hatred, and again, we talked last night about hate crimes and hate speech, right? It's one thing to incite violence. It's one thing to incite some sort of physical damage to someone. It's one thing to reveal what their address is and whatever, and encourage people to go around and knock on their door and harass their family. But words are simply words. And when you start saying this is a hate crime to utter certain words, you can start with certain things that we might all agree are pretty awful and you probably shouldn't say them. But then that leads to that, and then that, and then that. And then all of a sudden, it's a hate crime to say you don't like ice cream.
At the end of the day, this law is completely impractical. Who defines a hate crime is now in the hands of a small group of people who will no doubt pander to these activists. I don't understand how the Scottish government thinks it's a good idea when there are real problems in Scotland to be dealing with. I mean, Nicola Sturgeon's constituency has repeatedly had the highest drug deaths in Europe for the last 5 years. It is completely ludicrous. You have, and the points that JK Rowling is bringing up are very valid. Over 70% of trans-identifying people in prisons are in there for sexual offenses. The idea that for some reason now you have this protected group of people that can sue people for feeling offended, and the police are forced to take action, which, by the way, is completely baffling to me because they're basically no prison spaces in Scotland, is ludicrous. And unfortunately, I feel like JK Rowling will become the poster girl for this sort of legislation. I do believe that at some point she will find herself on the wrong side of the law, because this legislation is completely impractical. You have to be able to assert certain truths without fearing that the police are going to arrest you because someone could be offended.
In a bold rebuttal of these laws, celebrated author JK Rowling took to Twitter to voice her concerns. Rowling expressed apprehension about the legislation, particularly its potential infringement on free speech rights. Her tweet sparked a robust debate, with many echoing her sentiments about the dangers of stifling expression.
She essentially dared Police Scotland to arrest her for misgendering several trans sex offenders on Twitter. So she said, come at me, Police Scotland. If you're hard enough, come and arrest me. But they decided not to investigate. So there's a question here over whether they decided not to investigate because she's such a high-profile figure, or whether she has not committed a crime. We don't know yet. We don't know if it's been registered as a non-crime hate incident. But she's saying, you know what? If a lesser-known woman misgenders someone, I will say the exact same thing and again dare the police to get involved. She promises that if any woman falls foul of these laws due to things like misgendering, she'll repeat exactly what they said and make it much harder for the police to get involved.
Well, you know, this hate crime law doesn't seem to include hate directed at JK Rowling. You know, where is the justice for the Harry Potter author that has faced years of virulent abuse from transgender activists simply because she originally said several years ago that biological men cannot menstruate? A simple fact. She has been attacked. She has been cancelled. The Harry Potter reunion wouldn't even have her on the show. And she created that Harry Potter, franchise. She made billions of dollars for that business. It wouldn't even have her on the reunion. So the hate crime here, Gabriella, is the abuse being targeted against a woman simply for speaking up for other women. And, this hate crime law has received over 8,000 complaints since April 1st. And we've actually seen more complaints directed at Scottish First Minister Humza Yousaf than have been directed at JK Rowling.
I would never have thought 20 years ago that great leadership in our era would necessarily have been given by the author of the Harry Potter books. But J.K. Rowling has stepped up in a way that so few people have in our era. So many people just go along with whatever is demanded of them, say whatever they're told to say. And she has quite rightly, in my view, taken a stand on this particular issue, has said there is something wrong, actually wrong, about pretending that things are not as they are. They lead to terrible real-world consequences, and there's examples that have vindicated her on this. But most interesting is the fact that this overreach by the Scottish government, the Scottish executive, is really something to behold. The Scottish executive believe that they have the right not just to police what J.K. Rowling or you or I say in public, but also what we say in private, and indeed around the family dinner table. The legislation encourages children to inform on their parents. This is something that we saw in the Soviet Union, of course. It's been consistent in totalitarian systems across many, many years, but not in liberal democracies, not in countries that pride themselves on their liberalism and their democratic values. Humza Yousaf and his administration in Edinburgh should be absolutely not just shamed, but thrown out of office for what they're trying to do. And I'm just thrilled that Scotland's most famous author is leading the way in calling them out.
Yeah, JK Rowling really is a warrior. She's been speaking about this for years, and thanks to her bravery, a lot more women have been speaking out. But again, this does set the precedent, because what happens with this law, so far nobody has been prosecuted for misgendering, but it is just a matter of time, because it's included under the hate speech law as inciting violence and inciting hate. So, we have Ireland is trying to pass a similar hate speech law and online censorship law. We have Brazil that is trying to pass censorship laws and potentially ban X, claiming it peddles hate speech. So this is a dangerous attack on freedom of speech. And, while people can be respectful of different people's identities, nobody should be forced to play along with somebody's fantasies. If a man comes into a woman's space and declares that he is entitled to be in here, no, he is not.
Free speech is dead. It's gone and buried if people cannot accurately talk about the practicalities of biological sex. and call it as it is. This person is a biological male. This person is a biological female. Those tweets that you were just reading out were actually one of 11. She posted them in a thread. All trans activists, all those who had been convicted of really heinous crimes, but all called women by the media in Scotland. And she's also made famous the hashtag, "These are not our crimes," our being women's crimes. Why are you saying that these have been committed by women? Also pointed out how that skews the crime statistics in terms of blaming things on women that have been committed by biological males. I absolutely love it when one of these people with the clout is literally taunting the lawmakers, saying, okay, these hate speech laws have just come into effect. I'm going to set a precedent straight off the bat. Come and get me. Because again, this will set such an important precedent, because for future years, while these laws are in place, others can be like, well, you didn't prosecute JK Rowling, and she still says what a woman is. But what is frightening is for the everyday person, for you and I, that's out of the question. When we look at the injustices like Musk defending free speech, that's great. He's got the money to do it. Even the case up in Queensland that we saw recently, which saw justice for people who didn't want to take the vaccine and had lost their job working for the police or emergency services. That was thanks to Clive Palmer. That was thanks to someone with really deep pockets. Now we've got JK Rowling. Power to her, and thank you to these people for sticking your head up. When you don't have to, you can just live your life quietly in luxury and let all the rest of us be railroaded by these ridiculous laws. Good on them, but it is harrowing to consider that if this was an everyday person in their line of work or however it may come about for them, they are helpless.
JK Rowling should be able to say, I believe there are two sexes. She's not inciting hatred. She's not inciting violence. She's expressing an opinion. An Islamic preacher, as I said, who gets up in a mosque and says death to Jews, basically, that crosses the line. That's hate speech. That's incitement to violence. That should be criminalised. But, you know, hurting someone's feelings cannot be a criminal offence. Otherwise, all free speech dies in Western democracies. And one of the great strengths of our democracies is diversity of opinion, which is what you don't see in China, you don't see in North Korea, you don't see in Russia, and you don't see in Iran, you don't see in Palestine, by the way, in the West Bank or in Gaza. You don't see free speech. So that's where I draw the line. And governments who act in an extreme manner, like the Scottish government, they're going to create just a world of litigation for years to come, and it'll be very damaging to the country.
With the laws now in effect, the Scottish police have been inundated by complaints.
Now, on April Fool's Day, which was very appropriate, the Scottish Government introduced hate speech laws, which made it illegal to stir up hate against protected identity groups. And of course, we talked about that last week, how within just 24 hours, there were literally thousands of complaints, because you can complain about somebody saying something unkind. Your complaint can be anonymous, it can be online, so you don't even need to speak to a police officer, and the police have guaranteed they will investigate every single complaint. So the police force were immediately overwhelmed, and ironically, we talked about this, most of the complaints were about the First Minister of Scotland himself, who has a bit of a thing about white people.
No, sorry, James. He has a thing about white people, as he likes to say.
That's exactly how he said it. Now, the problem was they had thousands of complaints, but that was before the weekend. And on the weekend, Liz, there was a massive soccer game, and, you know, soccer hooligans are known for their chants, and they can be a little bit racial at times. And this was the comedy of these laws, is that lawyers were warning and police confirmed that not only could people at the stadium complain about hate speech from other supporters, but get this, people watching the game in the comfort of their lounge room at home, listening to the chants on TV, they could ring up police and they could report a hate crime coming through the television set into their lounge room. And so this was the situation they had at the weekend. They were expecting thousands of complaints. Now, the police have not been forthcoming. They said there were complaints. But curiously, they've not been willing to say how many complaints or how serious they were. But these laws are so ridiculous now that an article in the Belfast Telegraph at the weekend found that 68% of Scottish people now believe, after just 1 week with these laws in effect, that they should be repealed, because not only are they ridiculous, but they are tying up police resources. And instead of investigating rapes, murders, break and enters, you've got police running around chasing down literally thousands of anonymous complaints about naughty words.
For verbal crimes, thought crimes that they had the audacity to verbalise. This is just unbelievable, especially to anyone who's been to a soccer game. Same with footy games, really. I mean, some of
Soccer
the
is next level,
break
though.
out. Soccer is next level. I went to a Perth Glory game years ago, and I can't repeat the chants because they were so illicit. But I did go to a soccer game at the Arsenal Stadium. I was in the UK, and they were playing Tottenham. And just hearing the many thousands of people roaring these songs like "Stand Up If You Hate Tottenham," and the whole stadium stands to its feet. But they were chanting hate all evening, and everyone was having a great time because obviously it was their home ground. If you want to get rid of that, I mean, do me a favour, cancel soccer altogether, because that is part of the culture. It is fun. It is funny. I'm sure Tottenham gave it back to them just as badly, were they to be on their home ground. It is simply idiocy for the police to be chasing. Also, if it's a chant with that many thousands of people chanting it,
yes.
how on earth are you supposed to prosecute?
You literally had 48,000 people committing a hate crime at the exact same time.
What you've got to do is go and lock the gates, put the padlocks on the gates at the ground, and then you just put a great big dome over the place so no one can escape, and then the coppers go in and just arrest every single one of them. That is the only thing for it.
But what about hate crime coming through the television?
Well, I know. Well, I'm starting to wonder because, of course, when we talked about this story last week, we read out a number of tweets from JK Rowling, who was alleging that she may have herself committed a hate crime by sending those tweets and was inviting the coppers in Scotland to come and visit her when she returns to Edinburgh. So could it be that by us reading out those tweets as we did last week, we have committed the hate crimes into your living room or your bedroom or wherever you are tonight listening to it? And if you're watching on YouTube from Scotland, maybe you've complained about us too. I don't know. I look forward to the Scottish police flying over here to come and arrest me because, I mean, that'd be a hell of a lot of fun and certainly a good yarn to talk about on this program. But I'm almost glad that this has gone the way it has. Yeah. Because, I mean, I'm glad that it's become such a mockery, but I'm glad that Scotland actually passed the law so it could be the mockery that it is, because it proves how bad it is and will scare people off.